At one stage, I was very depressed after Korea, not because of Korea, although I was appalled at our inefficiency. The army was not efficient in Korea. We seem to have learnt nothing from the Second World War, in my view. And so when I joined the Queen's in Germany, we were very much under strength. That depressed me. In Korea, we were inefficient and under strength, although we were at war. And if I hadn't been wounded, I think I probably would have left the army. But I was wounded and came home and spent the best part of a year in and out of the Cambridge Hospital just down the road here at Aldershot. And then the decision was, am I going to stay? And of course, because of my wounds, I shouldn't have been allowed to stay in the infantry. And at one stage they said, you can't, or physically you won't be fit enough. The moment they said that, the decision was made for me. I'm going to stay. And so I did. But I think the hardest part was I going to stay in the army? That was the hardest decision I've ever had to make. There were lots of others, of course.
Yes.
I said, well, I obviously overgraded the whole lot of you. Still. But tell me when we're going.
Yeah. Are you ready to?
Yeah, absolutely. So perhaps tell me about how the army what lessons the army had learnt after the Second World War, and what the army's main role was after the Second World War.
I don't think we learnt very much from the Second World War. The army I joined was appallingly badly equipped. We didn't have a self-propelled artillery gun. We didn't have an armoured personnel carrier. We had a rifle that was the same as they'd used virtually in the First World War. We had a slow-firing machine gun. Our tactics were based on the drill book almost. There was no flexibility. And it took us, and national service didn't help because it was a sausage machine. They came in, they did their year or their 18 months, and you couldn't progress in training. You were just doing the same things over and over again, not able to develop tactics and thought and so on. So it was a very frustrating time until national service finished. But having said that, it was national servicemen who went to Korea. It was national servicemen in the Malayan emergency, and they did superbly well. And of course, you went in Korea, by the time I got there, it was a static war. We had advanced, then we'd been pushed back by the Chinese, then we'd gone up again to where the war had started on the 38th parallel, and we dug in there and we stayed there. So we were back to almost a 1914-18 war type, so tactics didn't really matter much. Again, this is one of the reasons I was so depressed. I mean, I was in a time warp almost, and it wasn't my idea of soldiering at all. Because I was wounded, I wasn't fit enough to go to Malaya, so I can't really speak for that. But the army lurched from one crisis to the next, really. I mean, Suez, Malaya, Kenya, we call it peacekeeping now. We called it counterinsurgency in those days. And so it was a very difficult period for the army.